Hello, my friends. How are you today? I'm Sue from Pelland Designs, and we are going live on YouTube today, as we always do Tuesday mornings at 11. It's so nice to be here with you, and today we're going to talk about ribbons. Do you enter your quilts into quilt shows? Do you enter shows so that you can win ribbons, or do you enter shows so that you have a deadline to get your quilts done? I'm picking up some of my ribbons here from previous shows, and I'm going to be showing you some of the ribbons that I have won. I just dropped one on the floor. And then we're going to make some ribbons together. Yesterday, I had a workshop for Christmas baubles for our Ahead of the Curve members, and they watched me as I was making ribbons for my Quilt Guilds Challenge. Hey, Kathy, good morning. So yesterday we worked on ribbons for my Quilt Guild Challenge while we were doing the Christmas baubles quilt. Why? What do those two things have in common? Well, it's all about circles. How do you cut circles to make the Christmas baubles quilt? Fell right in line with my project that I had to make yesterday, making circles for the ribbons that I'm making for our guild challenge. So let's get back to my original question. Why do you enter quilts into a quilt show? Or why would you if you never have done it before? Well, the answer certainly isn't to win ribbons. Now, of course, there are some elite quilters out there, and their goal is to win ribbons because that helps to promote their business, their teaching abilities, etc. But my purpose for getting my quilts out to a show is to spread the love of quilting. You don't know how many people come to our quilt show in our tiny little town of Upton, Massachusetts. Our quilt show is next March, by the way. And people come from all over town, from all over the area to the quilt show because they're curious, or they know somebody in the guild, or they remember their grandma making quilts. So what happens when they come to a quilt show is they look at the quilts and they say, oh, people are still making quilts and they don't have to go on your bed. You can put quilts on a wall. You can make bags and jackets and pillows and other things out of fabric. You can even make art out of fabric. People don't know that quilts are not necessarily made to go on your bed. So a great way to share your love of quilting is to share your quilts. So I don't often put quilts in a national quilt show because my goal is not to win ribbons, but instead I go to my local guild and I support my local guild by putting in as many quilts as I can in the show. And that helps my business. It helps my teaching business, but it also helps people see an applique quilt like this one behind me. And they may just say, hey, I would love to learn how to do that. And in order to do that, they're going to start their quilting journey. So the more people that we start on their quilting journey, the more people fall in love with quilting. And then we have more delight and beauty in this world. And that's what it's all about. Bringing a relaxing pastime to people who might need it to relieve stress, to just bring joy and beauty into their world. And I love to share my love of quilting. So let's get back to those ribbons. Even though I don't enter shows with the intention of winning a ribbon, and I just dropped one, so let me grab that. There are times when I have been surprised by putting a quilt in a show and then coming around the corner the day of the show, and my quilt has a beautiful ribbon on it. So I'm going to show you a variety of ribbons. And Kathy, sorry, you saw these yesterday, but we're going to go through the same ribbons again for all of those people that were not with us on our Christmas baubles class yesterday. And I'm going to go from my guild ribbons all the way up through some national show ribbons. So that'll be kind of fun to just see the variety of ribbons that are out there, the choices your guild gets to make when they run a show and they want to award ribbons to the quilts. They can go from something very organic and homemade, or they can go to a company like Hodges Badge Company in Portsmouth, Rhode Island, and have ribbons made. And I have examples of each of those. So the first one I'm going to show you is a homemade ribbon, and I don't know what I won this ribbon for. My guess is it was a guild challenge, but there's no place on the back of that ribbon where anything was written down. And so I've lost track of the history of this ribbon, but isn't it gorgeous? Look at the beautiful fabric that they chose. The blue ribbon tails indicates to me that it was probably a first place ribbon, but I don't know because I never wrote anything on the back. So I'm going to encourage you, if you are making ribbons for a Quilt Guild show or for a challenge, leave a place for people to write their information about what the award was for and their name, the date, the name of the quilt, because otherwise you lose track of why you got these ribbons. So another homemade option was just delightful to win. And I was so surprised because I was not able to attend this local quilt show for my local guild. And at the next meeting, they presented me with this ribbon. Here it is. I got a second place ribbon or award for one of my large bed quilts. Now, I believe it was for this quilt right behind me because it was 2022. I finished this quilt in 2022, but you know what? It's not even listed there. The date is not listed on the award, and I didn't write anything on the back. So what I would recommend is if you do something unusual like this, you could still leave a place to write the winner's name, the quilt name, and the event right here on the bottom of the award. So this was made with that acrylic that you can pour. You can color it with different colors. So they did one layer of blue, and then they added the words after they poured one layer of blue. They added some glitter in there, which I think is gorgeous. And then they added a second layer, either a lighter blue or I think it's just a clear acrylic on the second layer. They put in a eye, a twist in eye. So that you could hang it, and they did put a ribbon on top. So I love this one. I was also surprised, though, that it's blue because second place is usually either red or yellow. And I've got to look that up. My ribbon that is yellow was a third place winner. So I'm going to say the order normally goes blue, red, yellow. But when I was researching this for my guild, excuse me, the second and third place were sometimes swapped. So it really depends on the event, what type of event it is. Say it's like a dog show versus a quilt show. The colors may be different for typical colors, but you get to decide what you're going to put on your ribbons. So if you do opt for a handmade version, I love these two different options. And we're going to be making our own handmade version today in the second half of our sewing and slippers after I go through all of the ribbons here for examples. So the next level up was a guild ribbon that I won at our Quilt Guild show. Now it doesn't have a year on it. It does say viewer's choice. So that was voted on by the people who attended the show. And it has a nice little emblem on here with just sewing implements. And on the back, it says congratulations. And then it has the information about where to order these from Hodges Badge Company, Portsmouth, Rhode Island, and Washington, Missouri. But look at the back. No one filled it in. I didn't fill it in, and I have no idea why I won this viewer's choice ribbon. And I don't know if it was a second place ribbon, a third place ribbon. or the viewer's choice for the entire show. Who knows? So make sure if you do receive a ribbon to put the information in the back so you don't forget like I do. So these other ribbons from bigger quilt shows, they have really gone all out to make these ornate and beautiful and very, very special. Now, any ribbon is very special to win. It's always such a surprise. And as I said, I never enter a quilt thinking it's going to win anything. But when you do get that surprise, it's oh so wonderful. Hey, Doreen and Cynthia and Kathy. Good. I'm glad you love seeing them again, Kathy. And Cynthia, glad you're here from Pennsylvania. And Doreen, yep, hot, hot Tuesday. Okay, so this is from the Lowell Quilt Festival. And we used to have a show up here in Massachusetts called the Lowell Quilt Festival. It was put on by the Quilt Museum Auxiliary. I think that's the name of the organization that used to put on this show. So the Quilt Museum had a fundraising arm and they put on a show. And this was from that show. And it does say on the back what quilt won this award. So it is from me. And it was my quilt called Batik Beauty, which was a Karen Stone pattern, a paper piece pattern. And I love this one. It's a New York beauty made all with batiks. And I gave it to my niece. She still has it. And I haven't seen it in years. So it's fun to remember that quilt because I have the ribbon that it won. So this was the Lowell Quilt Festival, which was called Images. That was the name of the quilt festival in 2010. And it was a third place bed quilt that was pieced. All right. So that's wonderful to have all that information on the ribbons. So how did they custom make these? Well, they write to Hodge or they go onto the Hodges Badge Company website. You can make a custom engraving for the center of your button, or you can choose something off the rack like this one that has the sewing implements. You can choose the style of your rosette. We have this rosette here with the 6 petals, and we have this rosette with the pleating. So you get to decide which one you like better, and all the prices are going to be different. So you're going to find out what is available. And you can choose the number of ribbons hanging down, the 3-piece ribbon or the 3-piece ribbon or the 2-piece ribbon. And you can have those printed, and you can print those in any color you wish. So this one is printed in gold, and this one is also printed in gold. It looks really pretty in gold. So the next one that I received, or the next special one, I only took out a few because I have a lot of guild ribbons because that's my local guild, and much more commonplace to win a ribbon at your local show. But this one was very special because it came from the New England Quilt Festival, and that is the Mancuso Management Quilt Festival. It was the first place ribbon in the traditional category, and it was for this quilt right here. So the traditional category, I don't consider that a traditional quilt. It looks like a traditional quilt, but it's done in a very modern way. So they put it in the traditional category after looking at the photos, and it is traditional looking. So, you know, who knows? I was up against some really gorgeous hand applique quilts in that competition, and I was so thrilled to come around the corner. Actually, some of my members called me and said, "Hey, your quilt has a ribbon on it. You have to get up to the show." So I met Jane while I was up there. We went out for lunch together, and we got to enjoy the fact that there was a ribbon hanging on my quilt. That was in 2022, and this ribbon has a button style with the date on it. It has the pleating on the back, and it has a plain back so they could write what event, the date, and I wrote the true colors of springtime on there. Now, it surprised me when I saw 2015. I didn't make this quilt until 2022. But the 2015 was my entry number. So that was quite a funny surprise. The last one I'm going to show you is my really prized possession, and that is a ribbon from the Machine Quilters Expo. And this ribbon is really gorgeous. I mean, just look at that and how beautifully it matches that quilt. Well, I didn't win this ribbon for that quilt. This ribbon was at the MQX Quilt Festival in 2016. And this ribbon was for the best scrap quilt. And that was for my Cafe clamshells quilt. So each of the quilts that has won a ribbon are one of my block of the month quilts, except for that Batik Beauty, which was a Karen Stone pattern. So I love this ribbon because it has the MQX Festival logo in colors that match the ribbon. It's got a 3-layer rosette, and then it's got the 3 ribbons down below. Absolutely beautiful. This is one of that's my pride and joy right there. But as I said,